Hi there, welcome to another episode of The Heart of a Youth Leader. Hope you're enjoying these weekly podcasts and videos. If they are, and you don't want to miss them, do hit the subscribe button on YouTube and the bell so it gives you a reminder when there's a new episode. Or if you're listening to this on your podcast app, do subscribe so it pops up in your feed each week so you don't have to remember to listen to this. But I make these because I want to inspire you to keep close to God, keep close to Jesus as you serve him in your church, youth and or children's ministry. One of the advantages I find of being a youth worker, especially over many years now, is that you get to see some examples of Christian parenting, both in the great and in the pretty terrible as well, if we're honest. One great example I saw once was when I visited the home of one of the young people in the youth group and their parents, and someone had an accident and they brought out the first aid box, and yet on their first aid box they had stuck a sticker across the word first in first aid, and they'd written second aid because their first aid box was their second aid box. And I said, well, why have you done that? They said, oh, well, the first thing to do in an emergency is to pray. The second thing to do is to apply the treatment. Now, of course, it's not. The mum wasn't saying I delay helping my child when they need something from the first aid box, but it was that reminder that we've got to pray because God is bigger than everything. So pray and give the first aid. And I thought, what a great example, a simple way of teaching your children to prioritize God in all that we do. So much so that when we had children, I wanted to do that. And so when any of my kids get hurt or was feeling unwell, the first thing I would do is just put my hand on them and pray for them. And there's that wonderful moment as a dad when eventually you see the payoff when you go to your child, actually I've got a headache or I've hurt my leg or whatever, and they immediately just lay a hand on you and pray for you. It's a really wonderful thing. And as youth workers and as children's leaders, we are called to imitate and be role models for the young people and the children that we lead. You know, Paul, in the book 1 Corinthians chapter 11, the first verse, he says, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. Follow my example. I'm trying to live a godly life. So why don't you copy me as I try and copy Jesus? And that's kind of what we're doing. And the reality is, when we talk about Jesus, the young people that we lead will look to us to see, well, how does it apply to you? What does it look like in your life? What does following Jesus even mean? Of course, our end goal is for them to imitate Christ themselves and cut out the middleman of me with all my weaknesses and my mistakes. But if you think about it, the first thing we do, like our kids growing up, realizing that you need to pray when someone's hurt, is you've got to model it, because they only realize that that's imitating Jesus because they see us imitating Jesus. And so the New Living Translation, in fact, translates this verse in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 1, by saying, imitate me as I imitate Christ. Or the Passion Translation, I like this, says, I want you to pattern your lives around me as I pattern mine around Christ. This idea that I want to imitate Jesus, I want to pattern myself in the way he lived his life, and you can learn from that by copying me. It's not saying I'm Jesus, it's not saying imitate me because I'm as good as Jesus. It's saying let me show you how this works in my life because I'm trying to copy Jesus. And as they grow in that imitation, eventually that they will be caught up in that relationship with Jesus for themselves, and they will imitate him because they've seen us set that example. So here's the challenge to us as role models is, what are we modeling? Because to a certain extent, our young people and our children will imitate us, whether we like it or not. You know, as parents, there's a lot of research that says the default values our children have when they first leave home as young adults, the default values are the values of their parents, the good and the bad. So it's not about, hoping for the best. It's actually they pick up on what really our values are, not necessarily our behaviours, but what we really hold as important. And so it's one thing to say, yes, it's important to pray, but if we don't model prayer, the value they pick up is it's not important. And so what we need to do, and the challenge for us this week in this episode, is to look at Jesus's disciplines and say, well, if I'm imitating you, Jesus, what do I need to be better at? We see Jesus spent a lot of time with a few people in community, in the disciples, in praying with each other and learning together. Are we in a small group, a prayer triplet, or whatever that's gonna nourish our own spiritual walk and sustain us in our living? Jesus got up early to pray and to spend time with his Heavenly Father. Are we spending time praying with God? Are we spending time listening and talking to him about what's going on? Jesus made the Sabbath and attending the synagogue important. The temple was important. Getting together for communal worship was important. Where does that sit with us? I know a lot of youth leaders can often be frustrated with the services and the service style of their church, but actually that coming together to worship is a discipline of Jesus. Jesus fasted 40 days in the desert at the start of his ministry. Are we fasting to seek God for what he wants for our lives? These are all the things that come to imitate Jesus that we need to be getting stronger at, knowing the scriptures. At the age of 12, when we read that story of Jesus found in the temple with the religious leaders, it says that they were astounded because he knew the scriptures as well as they did. At the age of 12, Jesus was fully human, so it wasn't like he didn't need to put in the hours of reading or understanding or learning or memorizing the scriptures. He did. So he obviously nourished himself on the scriptures, and we need to do the same if we're going to imitate him. So here's the thing. Have a think about what Jesus was like, the ways he disciplined his life, the pattern of his life. And try and find what's the one thing that you want to grow more like Jesus in this week. Maybe it's his compassion for other people that you want to grow in that. Just choose one thing and then work out one way that you're going to grow in that this week, so that we can say with confidence to the young people and the children that we serve, imitate me as I imitate Christ. Go for it.